Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. You can check me out on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. You can find my books published by Triumph Press, available on Amazon: Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth, and Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children. Also, feel free to buy me a coffee. I have an announcement. There was a hearing held yesterday on the funding of foster children and adoption incentives. Now, if you know anyone who has had children removed by CPS or wrongfully drugged with psychotropic medication while in foster care, you and your family can submit a view or statement that must be mailed within 8 days to explain where the funding is going and how it destroyed your family and not helped your family. And I will put the instructions below in the podcast notes. And if you have any questions on this, you can email me at Dismantling Family Court Corruption. I'm happy to have on the podcast Amy Palacios, Eric and Stephanie Hux, James Campbell, and Mr. Anderson and Jeter are back again. We're going to talk about the criminality in Cabarrus County that apparently has no end to it. So I welcome you all to the podcast. And
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Who wants to go first?
I can just do a little blip and then everybody probably has more to say than me because I've had the most on the show. But so we're just here joining together to talk about Cabarrus County and the corruption going on in Cabarrus County in North Carolina. Our issues with H.J. White, which is the attorney, the DSS attorney. We have a lot of issues that are similar to this Cherokee County attorney that just got convicted of 12 different accounts of convictions. He was charged with 20 and got convicted of 12 different accounts. And we have very similar findings in our county with H.J. White. And we want it to be known and him to be been accountable for all the things that he's doing to also with us, with issues with paperwork, with issues with taking kids unrightfully, also financial issues of taking money without a cause and extorting money. My situation is more of DSS child support. The others will talk about the DSS child welfare part. But we've been fighting and protesting about getting Jay White's contract ended, and the county decided to keep him on for a whole nother year and slowly take him off. But the issue is the option that they chose is even more expensive. Even a couple of months ago, they were saying they're missing $100,000 and they didn't know where this $100,000 was. Well, when we went to go talk to Mike Downs, me and Amy Betts in our meeting, the attorney Evans said, "Oh, we found out where that $100,000 was. It went to Jay White's brother." So the issue is somehow that law firm keeps getting paid more and more money, even beyond their contract. And the option too that they chose to wean him off of it, of the child welfare part slowly, is going to be financially worse for the county. They said that he's going to come off of child support first. Hopefully my case is going to be heard again in June. But my issue with that is in June, I have a child, I have 2 children that have aged out of child support. The second one's graduating today. We've gone 9 times and Jay White just keeps continuing and will not take off. I'm still paying my first ex-husband $2,800 a month, even though, we have joint custody. I have 4 kids with him, 2 kids with the second ex-husband. The 2 kids I have with the second ex-husband, I have sole custody of, and he has supervised visitation. But in 6-month period of time, Jay White got 3 different orders. One for me to pay child child support to my first ex-husband of $2,800 a month. Another order to pay $70,000 equitable distribution to the second ex-husband that has supervised visitation, was in jail for 6 months for beating me up, has 2 convictions of assault on a female, and then another order to pay Jay White himself. So over a 1.5 year period of time, I've spent over $150,000. Judge Knutz even gave me an indigent form like over a year ago. They're giving me a free lawyer. Essentially, they have ordered me to pay out more than I make. And my ex-husbands have been telling me as soon as I don't pay, as long with Jay White, that I'm going to jail. The ex-husbands have said, because the narcissist will reveal what their tactic is, as soon as I go to jail for not paying these monies, they get the kids, right? So even the last court date that I had, I've already paid the $70,000. I've been paying the $2,800 a month. They, Judge Knutz said if I did not go, but I hadn't paid Jay White, but if I didn't go to court to the bank right now and get $5,000 to pay Jay White, that I would be going to jail that day. And then I was supposed to have court again in 30 days to pay the rest of the money, but then they extended it all the way to June. It's crazy that my child support ending was also extended all the way to June. The day after, it's like June 24th and June 25th, the day after my child support ending, where I've paid over $15,000 in overage because I've not like they won't take my children off. The day after I have court with Jay White and the contempt. So Jay White is just he's planning on taking that money that I paid overage for himself out of that DSS account. So apparently my ex-husband is not getting the money either. They're taking it out of my check and just putting it in an account. So that's extortion. I never had trial to get my kids back 7 days on and off with my older kids. I have them over the summer like that, but my request has been to all my complaints is I want all Cabarrus County orders to be ended, for me to go back to the Mecklenburg County order where I have my kids a week on, a week off. There's no child support, and that all these extorted orders are ended. I didn't have my kids taken through DSS, but there's been 7 ex parte orders, and Jay White was involved in that. And his monopoly behind the scenes, with using the court to kidnap my children. So I just want to say, the financial side of it, that he's using his position of power, because Jay White is over DSS child support, DSS child welfare. He was over the school board. He lost that contract. He's over the county contract. He's acting as an individual lawyer for criminal lawyer and also in family court. So he has his hands in way too many pots. He's wearing way too many different hats. He's represented me and both of my ex-husbands, but yet somehow he keeps threatening me that if I don't pay, I'm going to jail, and he's going to have these things done to me. So I'm just going to let all these other people, explain the things that are happening to them. There's already been all these stories. I want James to tag on that, but even on the news where this grandmother got her grandchildren taken while she was in knee surgery. One went to group home, one went to foster care over fake paperwork from Jay White himself, that it was paperwork created. The same thing happened with my child support. The same thing happened. He sent this paperwork to my place of work, claiming they needed to take this money out of my check. And because I have lawyers and everything at my work, they're like, this paperwork is not even from a judge. This paperwork is not even from the state. I can't use this paperwork to take the money out of your check. It's just from Jay White saying this some random lawyer. Well, then right after that, I was paying my ex-husband directly, and J.H. White took took the social workers and him and everyone to court. I was paying my ex-husband directly 4 checks of $2,800 a month with October, November, December, and January written in the memo line. And he went to court with J.H. White and the DSS social worker saying those were Christmas presents to the kids and I should be put in jail. I'm not paying any I haven't paid any child support. But the judge saw through that Grossman and didn't put me in jail and said I had paid the child support. But the problem is some of these judges, like Judge Knutz and Judge Wilhelm, they just 90% of the time will do whatever Jay White says, and they're bringing false information to the judge and then creating these false orders on us. So I'm going to let my team just tag off of that about the false information and the false paperwork that Jay White is creating.
Amy, you know what else I was thinking is maybe they should start auditing Jay White's IOLA accounts in his law firm. I'm just going to throw that out there. Okay, who wants to talk next?
I guess I'll go since Amy mentioned my name. My name is James Campbell, and my wife Yolanda Rushing and I have, since August 7th, our children were taken from us. And literally, we just had our adjudication hearing on May the 7th of 2024. So our children were taken in 2023, and we just had our adjudication hearing almost exactly 9 months later. So our story basically begins that we're a blended family, my wife and myself. We have 6 children total, 4 boys, 2 girls. And basically what happened was my, at the time, 9-year-old stepdaughter had confided to me of inappropriate touching by her biological father. Mm. And this is not the first time this has happened. We had the first incident that happened in 2018, before me and my wife's first son was born. During 2018, they did substantiate that something happened in regards to my stepdaughter. Then we had another incident that happened in 2020. And then this last incident happened in November of 2022. And my wife and I both been down the road before, dealing with Cabarrus County DHS. We're thinking that we're gonna, because of our past experience, we was kind of hesitant in regards to reporting it. We went ahead and reported the issue, and during the so-called investigation, they never did investigate my stepdaughter's father. They never asked for an assist by Mecklenburg County because he lives in Mecklenburg County. They never did any of this. Mm. And Jessica Killian, as I tell people, I want to continue to say names, was the social worker in these last, from 2020 to 2022, has been the investigator in our case. So I think I know she spoke to my wife in November, December, January, and February. Then in April, they visit my stepdaughter at her school. Then it went silent. We didn't hear anything from the investigator. Nothing for months. So my wife went ahead and filed a complaint to the state. Hey, this social worker is not doing what they're supposed to do. At this time, my children are in Oklahoma, visiting my mother-in-law for the summer. Next thing we know it, we get emails saying that they're trying to wrap up our case. Now, by this time, we're looking at June and July of 2023 now, talking about they're ready to close the case. They end up, while my children were in Oklahoma, they sent the Oklahoma police to my mother-in-law's house to do a welfare check. DSS harassed my mother-in-law by kept calling down there to check on our children. They called the DSS down in Oklahoma and had them doing checks on our children when they're simply like, we don't even know why we're here. We just got a call that we need to check on the children. So we get to the end of June the end of July. And the last week, we bring our 2 youngest children back, our 3 and 5-year-old at that time. And so my wife had the child and family team. I guess it was a meeting back on the 29th of I believe it was the 28th or 29th of July of 2023. During that conversation, they basically stated that their findings found that it was a hostile environment between my wife and her ex. And we're like, my wife was like, they don't even communicate with each other. So how is there a hostile environment? So basically, that was it. Then they pop up at our house on the same day of the CFT meeting because my wife excused herself from the meeting because the person who was initiating the meeting, one of the DHS workers, laughed during the call when my wife made a statement about that, hey, all I'm trying to do is protect my daughter. And her father was inebriated on the call. You can tell that, he's known to be an alcoholic. You can look at Mecklenburg records to find that. He had at 4 years old, my stepdaughter would tell that he had to breathe in the tube just for his car to start. So we've been going through that. And so next thing you know, our two youngest children come back from Oklahoma 2 weeks later on August the 6th. And on August the 7th, I get a knock at the door with 4 police officers and social worker Jessica Kelly saying they're here to take my kids. And me being the person I am, I'm looking at her like, who kids? And then there was a whole lot of obscenities coming out of my mouth. I'm not going to lie. Because you're not just going to come up to my house saying you're going to take my children. Exactly. And this is what is called legal kidnapping. They draw up a false petition. Yes, ma'am.
Was she a social worker or just a caseworker, like another
I
image?
believe she was a caseworker. Jessica Killen was a caseworker who did the investigation.
Okay.
And so she basically was saying that we created this injurious environment for our children and also went into neglect. And I'm sitting there like, what are you talking about? We never did anything of some sort. So next thing you know, they didn't want to hand me the documents. And they basically, it was a false petition. And Amy just mentioned a very important person, Judge Grossman. Judge Grossman was not supposed to be presiding on any type of cases or anything like that. And he's the one that signed the order to have our children removed out of our home. He also had his daughter, Rachel Zach Grossman, as our guardian ad litem. So you can see the trend that was going on. So I started complaining that, hey, we need a new guardian ad litem in our case. And that's when our nightmare just begun. Oh. And literally, we've been fighting this system ever since, trying to get our children back. As stated, we just had our adjudication hearing 7 months later, when according to statute, you're supposed to have that within 60 days. Jay White is a very incompetent attorney. They didn't present any evidence. But the other thing is that they're violating federal law in our case. We are protected by the Indian Child Welfare Act, which is called ICWA. My wife is a member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, which is a federally recognized tribe by
Could you
United
say that
States
again?
government.
I'm so sorry. Could you please say that again, James?
Yes, we're protected by ICWA, which is the Indian Child Welfare Act. And ICWA, and what that means is that you have to go through the tribe in order to take somebody's children. And the name of our tribe, my wife's tribe, is the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. It is one of the federal recognized tribes by the United States government. And it's also, it brings in over $1 billion of revenue to the state of Oklahoma each and every year. So they are basically saying, forget what the tribe is telling you to do. They don't want to listen to our tribe. They don't want to listen to the tribal attorney. And so right now, our case is no longer a state matter. It's now a federal matter. And ironically, yesterday we were supposed to be in court, and they have went so far. Christy Wilhelm, the chief judge, has went so far in our case to try to recuse herself. We have seen every judge in that courtroom, but now I'm pretty sure she's advising them not to talk on our case. And they brought in an outside judge named Judge Jeanine Houston to be over our case. And ironically, she had a family emergency yesterday, and now our case is still being held out. So we don't even know when we're going back to court. Supposedly we're going next month, which is ironic, because we were supposed to get a decision yesterday.
And that's something that Jay White continues to do. He continues in front of different judges with the same excuse. He continued my ex-husband's criminal case 8 times with the same excuse over and over and over again. So he's using
Mhm.
the same tactic of continuance on all of us. So I just
Right.
wanted to interject that.
Yeah, and this is to
Yeah,
drag the case out and stress the parents and the children out more.
exactly. And what's so crazy, he went as far as to lie back on March the 7th to say that our tribe did not want to be part of our case. Well, in fact, what they were doing was trying to verify my wife's Native American ancestry, but instead, they try to say that they were trying to give the tribe proper notification. Well, we have facts that and documents showing that you were contacting the wrong tribe, and we provided you the right tribe the whole entire time. So right now, we are, as stated, Amy stated earlier, we're going through the same thing that they're going through in Cherokee County. They're lying on the record.
Mhm.
Our court reports were so out of whack from August 7th up until present that the tribe themselves had to go through and redo all the orders that they put into the court system here in Cabarrus County.
Because even what the judges say are different than what the orders. Chrissy Wilhelm from the stand said I would never have to pay child support in Cabarrus County, and that Jay White could not be on any of my ex-husband's cases. But he still stood in the courtroom next to my ex-husband, Matthew Bledsoe, and got an order for me to pay him $2,800 a month. He still stood in the courtroom next to Goldberg and got that order. So they omit the things the judges say
Mm-hmm.
and make up their own orders.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Amy's absolutely right. They make up their own orders. They will do things to
They most certainly do.
they try to make you seem like they want to make you stress you out. But let's be honest, as loving parents, your children aren't in your home. We teach our children not to talk to strangers. But then you put children with strangers, or for the first 48 hours, our two youngest boys were in a foster care. We didn't know where they was. And I was calling DSS. And I haven't even recorded that the investigator never spoke to me during this whole investigation. She literally lied in her petition that she had her friend, Rachel Grossman, give to her father, Judge Grossman, to sign. And that's how our children got removed. We're not the greatest parents in the world. But one thing about it, we're not bad parents.
Mm.
And, we live next door to a guard at Atlanta. To the left of me is a lady who's a supervisor with Mecklenburg County DHS. Across the street from me is a sheriff department, a sheriff. You never talked to any of our collaterals, but what you did was you made sure to call our exes, though, who you know is going to say something, have nothing but negative things to say about us.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
So I would like to, pass it over to the Huxes. I took too much time, so it's all for the Huxes.
No,
and
you're
Mr.
fine.
Anderson.
You're good.
Thank you, James.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Well, ours starts in August 18th of 2021. Eric and I were traveling with our children around the whole country in a camper that we had renovated, and we were expecting our fourth baby. And we had just sold and checked into the Spring Hill Suites, and went to across. Actually, she was 4 at the time. She was 4 years old, and she went to break a pair of very expensive sunglasses after we told her not to touch them. And my husband took her hand and smacked it and said in a really strong tone, "Do not touch those sunglasses. I told you not to touch them." And I was really sensitive at the point, and I seen that her finger looked like might have been broken. And at the end, I wasn't actually looking at them when it had happened. So I didn't see that she actually had got her finger stuck in the shopping buggy later when she went to go stand up. And I had called my mom and said I thought her finger might be broken. And she called Child Protective Services and said that Eric broke her finger. And the whole thing is actually on camera too. So we can see that he did not break her finger. And even if he had broken her finger, it was a slap on the hand and it was an accident. And we had paid way more than the price for an accident to her finger. and it's on camera. So,
Mhm.
they came knocking on our door, room 420, arrested Eric, and took all our kids and put them in in a foster home.
And
They're
had me sit in jail right before Christmas time and tell me that I was looking at 4 years in prison and that the attorney would be coming with me at a plea and they would highly recommend take the plea. And they had Joanne Peters come to me right before Christmas and said, hey, if you take this plea for felony child abuse, we'll give you 24 months of supervised probation. And then once you finish that, you can get your kids back. So that entire time, I successfully completed all the classes that were wrongfully required of me. There was one class in particular, a domestic violence class that was given through Genesis, a New Beginning in Concord, North Carolina. Mind you, there's no domestic violence in our relationship. This teacher was showing up late for class. She was making everything about the money. She was acting in a very unprofessional manner. And I recorded a session of this class and I sent it to the social worker. Well, when I did that, the social worker clearly had conversation with them about it, and they were gossiping back and forth about this. Thus, I was removed from the class per my behavior. So I printed out Genesis and New Beginnings Christian mission statement, and took it up to Genesis to speak to the founder of Genesis about this. And standing in the back having a conversation with the ladies that work there, I had no idea what it looked like, but I had mentioned, hey, I'm here to speak to so-and-so about my removal from this domestic violence class. And he looked up at me and said, oh, well, you must be Mr. Hux, and we're not going to have that conversation. Have a nice day. You need to leave. So there's no accountability. There's no transparency. These people, they come in, they steal our children. We're not bad parents. We've not done anything wrong. They substantiate these things without actually substantiating anything. All the attorneys are liars. They blatantly tell me that, this has been going on for so many years that, there's nothing I can do to change it. And all I better do is just comply and do this and do that. Otherwise, I'll never see my children again.
And I can't speak to Eric again. And the fact that I spoke to him in jail lost me the children, because they kept making it sound like they were just separating me from the kids momentarily, and I was going to get them back. I had more visitation than anybody else. I had them 3 times. I got to see him 3 times a week. And but they said, oh, they had recorded that I had spoke to him on the phone. So now I'm not going to be able to have my children. And even though they're crying for 40 minutes after every visit, sobbing for us, they've never been separated. They are literally the most traumatic and disgusting situation they've ever been in. That's more traumatic than anything they've ever been through traveling around the country with their parents. And they made it sound like we're so traumatizing because we didn't have roots. We weren't in a home, but we were traveling, spending every moment with our kids, which we thought was more valuable than to be in a house. We all know we're in a housing crisis. So Eric and I thought it was more favorable to spend our time with our kids. And now our kids are waking up at strangers' houses, sobbing for their parents, they're like laughing about the fact that after our visits, they're crying for 40 minutes. For their parents, come on, this is horrendous what they've done.
Now, this has probably been
they don't want him to talk to their father ever again, as if like that was enough to take him away from being their father, me to ever talk to him again. That was just, the whole thing has been insane.
Right. The whole thing was a ploy, them saying that, well, don't talk to him and we'll give you your kids back. They weren't going to, even if you didn't talk to him, you would not have gotten your kids back.
I know, I can see that now.
Yeah, the whole thing's a lie. And I'm going to ask you, did they do a one-sided interview in your case? Was it just one-sided? Like on their side in their make up false narratives?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
They never even let us say anything. We had proof against every accusation.
They would even manipulate verbiage, as like we would tell them that we traveled across the country in our 30-foot camper that was completely renovated. And oftentimes we would stay in, hotels. And when we would do that, we were Hilton Honors members and Marriott Bonvoy members. So, we always had our kids in a suitable atmosphere. If not better than suitable. And they would, change the verbiage like, oh, Mr. and Mrs. Hux traveled the country, and they would often stay in tents, and they would often stay at motels and stuff like that, just trying to make the vibe of the situation sound completely different.
Yeah, we stayed in a tent at a campground in Maine. Like, it was literally like a cool event in Maine where my family is. Well, we have pictures of everything too.
Right. And families go camping. So
Right, like what?
this could
Yeah.
happen to anybody.
Yes,
And I'm
ma'am.
a
And you know,
medical, I'm a
we have
medical provider.
documentation of everything.
I watched the video of the child's hand. Like they had a video of the hand of the child afterwards. It was full range of motion of the child's hand. That there was nothing wrong with the movement of the child's hand. That full range of motion. I know a lot of people that have like walk up and down the flight of stairs. I know 2 different stories in my personal life where they fell on their own child, like walking up and down the stairs, you know, and they broke their leg. Nobody got a felony charge. Nobody got any of these things for an accident of, I mean, my ex-husband even dropped my child. She fell out the car onto her face with him, you know, I mean, that there was no charge for neglect or like hitting her face and having all abrasions on her face. I mean, that it doesn't make any sense. There was nothing wrong with the child's hand. It was full range of motion, full range of motion. There was no shaking the baby, no bruises on the child, no kind of trauma situation that would have been abuse. There was nothing
Right.
like
You
that.
feel so
And
guilty
I
too.
worked in trauma ER.
Yeah. Did they take
There was
did they take your
And
children?
no record
to
of
the ER?
dependent or like that.
Did they take your
Yeah,
children
pardon?
out to the ER and look at this hand?
They have my mother-in-law we and her took her to the urgent care, and she wore a little brace for maybe a day. She didn't even need it, but and at first they said nothing was wrong with it, and then they said it was what?
Yeah. So while I was locked up, I think that my mother and her took the child to urgent care, and they said that there was a very minor compression fracture up near her fingertip, which, you know, the truth of the matter was caused by her standing up in the buggy and it getting caught in the grate in the buggy.
And even so, it was fine in a second. And I recorded our 4th child was born while he was in jail. I had to give birth alone at the hospital. And I recorded them taking her and said, how are you able to, you know, how is this considered abuse? You know, families have this kind of stuff happens all the time. It's not abuse. If he didn't mean to hurt her, it's not like that he whacked her in the side of the face or punched. Like, this was just a smack on a discipline.
Right.
And if we don't even know that was what caused it. And they were just like, well, families don't have a child's finger get broken and you have not protected and it was just a really ridiculous platform that and you're still talking to them for I made them say that I had no drugs in me, yet they want to call me dependent, no drugs. Where I started having grand mal seizures in the last trimester. And so that was what they had used in May. I was in Maine, and that's where my mother and family is. That's what they had used for me as a safer medication than any of the medications for seizures. And I had been prescribed to use marijuana. It was so far back in my system that it wasn't even in me and the baby. So I clearly wasn't dependent on it. And I had the proof that was what was given to me, but they said it was in the meconium. So even if I still don't see how that would be proof of anything, because I had all the paperwork for that to be as a legal alternative. And she was born perfect. And I didn't even need, it was hard for me to go out of the hospital without them injecting me with medication, even though I told them again and again, I don't want anything injected in me. I don't need an epidural. I don't need anything. I gave birth naturally. So clearly I don't need to get high. I don't have that issue.
Was it your mother that called CPS?
Yep, it was.
Does
she never thought it would go this far either. She just thought that Eric was like, they had a couple arguments and she just had it out for him.
Well, she just shot herself in the foot.
Yeah, she broke her ankle right after she got off the phone.
Oh, well,
literally, she broke her ankle literally right after she had the phone, and she's not repaired since. So she really did shoot herself in the foot because she did not think it would end up.
Well, that's karma.
I'm a wonderful mother too. She thought, yeah, it really is.
Yeah, she shouldn't have done that.
But yeah, she shouldn't have. She feels like she's alone on a mountain now. So it's really, she didn't think that most people don't think that the system is this corrupt. So she thought I was going to get, It's been really
and they all come in, with the idea of, being our advocates. They
liars.
say, they're here to advocate for us and for our children, and that couldn't be any further from the truth. They've done nothing but try to criminalize us, try to make us look like bad people. I mean, our actions can be seen on our YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel with our children called Hux Family Adventures. And we made it about them. We tried to break the chains. We tried to, escape, these societal evils that are going on in this world. And we tried to just spend time with our children. And it seems that we couldn't even do that without being, interrupted and, stolen from. I mean, they had literally come in, they've stolen our children. They've put a bunch of, absolutely ridiculous classes in front of us that, are an absolute mockery of the system. They do nothing about talk about, how it's just part of the, platform, and really expect any sort of change to come from it. It's kind of a requirement. And I mean, if we're to take this serious, as parents who really care for their children, why would I not want to, hold them accountable if they're not taking the classes seriously?
Yeah, we have to pay for it too. It's taking our time out of our day, and we're paid for each class $30 a class.
Are you-
anytime I question anything, anytime I try to bring up something that, doesn't sound right, there's further distressness thrown into our situation. For example, with Jay White, I noticed the unprofessional behavior of Jay White. My dad is a retired United States Air Force veteran. He served 20 years in the military, retired as a master sergeant. So I'm no fool. I come from a family who, served this country and, thought that the government was, up to par with, our expectations. And it is most certainly not.
No.
I filed a complaint on Jay White on the 18th of January with the state bar. And the 19th of January, I received paperwork saying Jay White had taken child support out on me. So
I knew it. That was my next question.
That was a very, very clear retaliation. Very, very clear retaliation. We were in Florida not too long ago working, trying to make some money so that we, provide for our family, even though they're not with us. And a court date came up for child support. I reached out to my attorney, Mr. and asked him, what I should do because I was out of state. He told me that I should contact the clerk of court. I contacted the clerk of court trying to get a continuance, and they told me that I should contact the social worker. So I'm getting the runaround here. I contact the social worker, and she goes, "Oh, well, don't worry, I'm going to take care of it." Okay, assuming that the court case was going to be continued, and when I got back, we would take care of it. This retaliatory action, that is, and I heard nothing else about it. I got some paperwork saying that I was in arrears $100 for child support, not knowing anything about it. I asked the social worker, and she goes, "Oh, well, I'm not sure when it had been rescheduled to," not knowing anything about it clearly. I asked my attorney about it. He told me I should ask the social worker. I told him that, she had no idea. And so now he's messaged somebody within the court system to try to find out how I'm already in arrears for something that I've never even been served on. So
Wow.
There's very clear corruption going on here.
And they stole from us. This is our son Christopher that they're doing, and he just turned 9 months today. After Eric had completed probation, I completed all the classes. The case was closed on the other children. They stole our children. They're with his parents, and now they took our new baby, who is 9 months old today, and are going to charge us child support when it's not that we're choosing to not. Our child, they stole him from us. Another child, our fifth one.
So all your children, they're with your mother, or they're in foster?
Our 4 children are with my mom and dad. And so just to provide a little bit of why we haven't seen them.
But the fifth one is with us.
To provide a little bit of a backstory as to why we've still not seen them while they're with my parents, it's because we had a child and family team meeting, which they call a CFT meeting, with all the supervisors of this case after our 4 children were given to my parents and they were granted guardianship. They were given to my parents and granted guardianship because I never finished the domestic violence class because I chose to hold them accountable for their actions. That's the same class they said I was removed for my behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after the case was closed with our children and my parents had guardianship, they were obviously still expecting me to go through and complete that class. We had rented a home and I was working a very good job, and we were seeing our children.
Around the corner from them.
we were seeing our children, because during that safety meeting, they made it very clear, not only to myself, but to my father, who is a retired U.S. veteran, that it would be completely up to them when we saw the children, and they had no more say so because they weren't going to be involved anymore. So we started seeing the children. A social worker showed up at our house one day saying that we had been seen with the children at church and that we were not supposed to be with the children unsupervised. So while I was at work, they came and took our son back to my parents' house and basically threatened my parents and said, hey, look, you guys have been letting them, see the children unsupervised for all this time, and that goes against the court documents. My dad's like, well, what do you mean? I was a part of that child safety meeting where you very clearly told us that you were no longer involved, and that them seeing the children would be completely up to us. And so now, my dad being a U.S. veteran and having a little bit of sense, he's starting to see what's going on here. And he's like, we got to play this careful. He said, because they keep threatening to take the children from us. They keep saying that if we let you see the children, we're going to take them, we're going to throw them into foster care, and they're going to all be split up. They're going to be separated. And so my parents are like, hold on a minute, let's just try to get through this next one, through this Christopher case. And then, we want to give you the children back. So like, we're going to get the kids back, but this entire time DSS is threatening to take the children from them if we even visit with them.
Oh.
Yeah, and Jay Weiss was mocking us at the last court case, saying I supposedly have seizures, as if I'm like pretending to have epilepsy just as a way to manipulate, because they want to be able to like speak to my doctors, which I don't think they have the right to talk to anymore. I don't think they should have that right to apply into this, because why do they get to? I'm not even accused of anything yet. They get to go and violate my.
Yeah, they stole our children.
Violation.
They're extorting money from us. They're extorting, classes from us. They're extorting information from us. They're basically trying to take control of our life. We've lost every chance of having a revenue source from the YouTube that we were doing. I've now got a felony charge on me that makes it really impossible to get housing, to get, a good paying job. I've been frowned upon. I've got certain people from the community who look at me crazy now, who used to look up to me because I've got this felony child abuse charge. And, when people see that, it doesn't come with the context, so like, I've got to individually explain this to every single person that questions me about it. And it's extremely embarrassing, especially when I'm a good father and I haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah, and I'm failure to protect, a mother that was failing to protect and leave a crazy abusive relationship, which was not the truth. I'm not going to just lie and say that he's never hit me or hit the children. If he would have reacted so strong about the smack on the hand, if he was actually abusive, that would have not even faced me. So that's the fact that they made it sound like this entire time all I had to do was like falsely accuse him of something that he didn't do or else. And that's really how they've said it. And they've mocked me and just like been really, I have like 10 women all around me, and just to bully and say like, how many times have you tried to leave him and da 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 da. I'm like, that had nothing to do with that. That was in the beginning of my relationship. We broke up a couple times. So what? I wasn't sure if I wanted to be married again. We've been together 8 years now. This was in the beginning that we may have broken up, but since we've had children, we've had more of a reason to make a foundation and stay together. It has nothing to do with abuse. So it's just whether he aggravated me. So what?
Yeah.
That's a relationship thing.
Yeah, this is all about money. This is all about money, and it's all being rigged. And
yeah, we've made Jay White a millionaire in this county. Let's just be honest.
Yes.
Let's just be honest. That's exactly what's happening. That's facts. I mean, this is my first time hearing a Hux story. So my heart is really breaking, because your children, I have 4 children taken. One of our children will actually has crossed state lines. He's in Michigan now with a father who doesn't even want to have anything to do with him. Our 9-year-old was placed back with her accuser.
Wow.
And then after me pleading for our 2 youngest children, they are now in Charlotte with their godmother. But just think about the mind of the children. They're not thinking about our children.
no.
It's sad. Like our 5-year-old, he literally is taking it the hardest. We have missed, school is out now in Concord. We miss our 9-year-old school. Well, she's 10 now. We missed her school year. We missed our kindergarten, his whole kindergarten year. And he's always said, I want to come home. When am I going to come home?
Likewise.
And that's
Likewise,
what
and
they
we're never
ask.
going to get that back. And they've
No.
just stolen that from us. And it's time we
Yeah.
get that refund from them and say, hey, look, it's time we held you accountable, because nobody's
Yeah.
holding these government officials accountable, and they're walking all over people in their community. And, I don't understand that.
We can't even like say, wait a minute, we have to come up with all this evidence at the court date. We didn't even get an opportunity to say, wait, we have evidence to say that that's not true. Why do they just get to go through all these false accusations?
That's the issue. You never get to have
And that's what
court,
they do.
you never get to present your evidence. You just wait for months and months and months without your children, and they make it
Mhm.
look like that's what happened, whatever
Yeah,
story they
right.
created.
And had I not accepted that plea,
Mhm.
had I not accepted that plea, I would have sat in jail and sat in jail and sat in jail, and it would have been continued and continued and continued. And I would have sat there in pain and agony, watching my family suffer, watching my family be torn apart. They would have, drove a wedge in between myself and my wife like they were trying to do. She would have found somebody else just in an effort to try to get the kids back, and it would have all been sabotage.
Well, they've done the same thing to you, James, right? Tell you if you
Right.
just separate from your wife,
So,
you just separate.
So sources say that they had nothing against me. They were all had allegations against my wife. That's where they were trying to come from. And they're basically were like, hey, if you, I don't have any issue with James, but our issue is with Yolanda. Like, hold on, we're a unit. You're not going to separate me from my wife. I mean,
Right. And that's what they
we
try to
have
do.
That's
had-
what they do.
I have had meetings with the county commissioners. I have meetings spoken to a couple county commissioners. We have sat down and spoke with the assistant county manager, the county manager, and it's like, you all see the foolery that's going on in our case, but nobody wants to speak up. You're sitting there and know that we didn't do anything wrong. And it's like you're trying to build evidence against us, but because you don't have any. And even with our tribe letting them know and doing the closing arguments, our tribe attorney said, look, these children need to be returned back home, and any services need to be voluntary, because they know that they have nothing on us. But what Jay Weiss does, he tries to get into the head of the judge, especially this judge that he really doesn't know. And you can see them talking and chit-chatting. And even back in March during our case, he was trying to say, the judge was even trying to say, hey, well, I know you sent this information to the tribe. I know you sent it. And the fact was that he never sent anything to our tribe until the 28th of February, trying to verify the documents. And he was trying to go make all these outlandish claims, and it was ridiculous. And then for the first time ever, earlier this month, our case was closed to the public. Throughout this whole entire almost 10 months, our case had never been closed. Let me tell you, they kicked everybody out, and the judge verbatimly said, if anybody tried to sneak up in this courtroom during this case, I will literally lock you up for contempt. And as I'm trying to enter back after the first recess, the door was locked, and I said to the bailiff, are the doors going to continue to be locked? He's like, yes. I'm like, wow. So this is what they do.
They take your support, they take your witnesses. I had like 7 people there to testify for my permanent trial. Instead, they just gave me a gatekeeper and a gag order not to talk about my first 4 kid situations. So I can talk about Jay White. I can talk about child support. I can talk about my second kid situation. My whole entire time. That doesn't even have anything to do with it. But Jay White has used it that they can keep me paying child support indefinitely at this price and not take my 2 kids have aged out. I have my second child. That's why I'm wearing dressed up. I'm about to go to my graduation for my second child today.
Extortion.
There's a reason why they don't allow cameras in that courtroom, is because they don't want people to understand or know what's going on, and for anyone to have any sort of proof of anything. And I've even heard that the cameras that are recording in the courtroom, you can't even really get access to the audio.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
times will be changing. I recently had on Jerry Anderson and Jeter. They were last on season 5, episode 105. And you were actually thrown in jail by Jay White.
Yeah, he was up there talking to the judge, Knutz, and I guess they concluded that I needed to go to jail for 4 days because of my emotions of seeing a social worker that should be gone, how they come in and out of his social services agency. They just come and go. If they get in trouble, they leave. And then when the trouble's over, they come back. We got poor leadership. They fill positions, but they fill them with inadequate help, and that's the
Right.
problem.
And it was a caseworker, wasn't it, that you saw in that courtroom?
Yes, ma'am.
Jessica Burgess.
Yeah, while you were court watching. And
And
Yeah.
what is so ironic, he was at my wife's and he was court watching with our trial back in March when
that's
they
right.
did this deal. And what was so sad is, you know, he wasn't talking to Knutz. He
Right.
was talking about the worker. Next thing you know it, go get that man.
Mhm.
Hold up. Then they locked the doors on him. We could not even go inside the courtroom. You cannot put anybody in contempt without people being in the courtroom. They literally locked the courtroom. We could not go back in there. And they did Mr. Anderson so wrong. So
Oh
wrong.
yeah. Oh yeah. They did her the same way as you, Jerry, when they tried to silence you for your emotions. We were in the courtroom under Judge Cloninger, and he had said something about Stephanie that was inaccurate. So she just kind of looked at him like, huh? You know, she didn't say anything. And he looked down and advised her lawyer, ma'am, you better let your client know what facial expressions are acceptable in my courtroom. And then
Oh.
she made the face again, and they had her arrested, and we're going to charge her with contempt because she made a facial expression towards the judge.
Yep, they put me in handcuffs and I fell on the floor and had to went into a seizure.
Okay, see, all
Yeah,
that needs to be reported to your judicial committee, whoever you put your complaints into. People have
Judicial
got-
standards. Yeah.
Okay. They need to know about this because they need to know how their judges are treating the taxpayer. It all comes down to the taxpayer. Wake up, people.
Yeah, they say
Amen.
they're protecting me. Like, oh, I've been allowing abuse. I'm an abused woman, but yet I've never felt the kind of abuse that I felt from them. And
Right.
what my children have never been so abused as the filthy rooms they put them in, the strangers telling them lies constantly.
We feel so betrayed by the people who are supposed to be guiding us. I mean, if anyone's going to be mentors, you know, why not them?
It's legal abuse, it's financial abuse, it's emotional abuse. And they've been without their children for 3 years now. For this little, like, it wasn't even abuse.
They
Right. It wasn't even abuse. My
destroyed.
baby Isabella doesn't even know us really.
Oh.
She doesn't even really know us. She knows them as her parents.
Yeah. And
Oh.
what's so sad is that, as Eric and Jerry and Jeter have alluded to, we have poor leadership in this county.
Mhm.
And
Jay
to show you how poor they are, they, back on April the 15th, they kicked me out of the county commissioner's meeting. I was escorted by 4 sheriffs, and I was kicked out of the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners meeting because I told the truth.
On
I named
camera.
names. On camera, I told the truth. Mr. Anderson and Jeter have been saying people's names for the last 2 years, but all of a sudden, I've been saying names since January. Now on April, you want to kick me out and tell me that I can't use my First Amendment rights, and then so bad that at the end of the meeting, I'm already kicked out, and you're questioning what you did to me. Did you violate my First Amendment right? Yes, you violated my First Amendment rights. Yes, I spoke out about what's going on. And yes, I'm going to continue to fight for what's right and what's wrong. It's ridiculous. And it's like they have you where you can't say anything about anyone. If you say a name, they're assuming it's ad hominem. Well, how's that ad hominem? How do you know what direction I'm going to go if you didn't let me finish my speech? I only
Amen.
get 3 minutes.
Right.
And all these cases revolve around H.J. White.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
He's
he
follow the
did
money.
chat. He did. H.J. White opened a DSS report on me. Actually, he opened a DSS case on me. And the social worker came and said that on a recording, because I recorded the whole thing, that Jay White demanded that this case be opened on me. There was no, it was after my kids had been emergency kidnapped with his advice. Now that's all over, but he tried to open a DSS case on me to create false evidence. And because I was speaking out, at the time I was on the show, Megan Fox show, and the very first picture of the Megan Fox show was a jail cell, and 4 DSS workers in a different county had just gone to jail for doing exactly the false lying and doing what they were trying to do to me that day. I had just been on that show and I forwarded it to DSS. They shut it off in 6 weeks. So people are scared to speak out. They're silenced. They're being, even people within our own groups that are connected to political stuff are telling us to be silent or this is going to happen to us, threatening us from within. Even the commissioners coming up and threatening us before that we start the meeting. This time it didn't happen, but the time before they were threatening, trying to put fear in you that you can't say people's names or you can't speak out so that you won't. Threatening and intimidation and fear that if you be silent, then maybe something will happen in your favor. No, it's totally opposite. The only reason I haven't gone to jail in 2 years or a year and a half of this constant payment is because I've been on Marianne's show, 12 times now. The only reason I haven't had these things done to me that they constantly threaten and constantly tell me is because I won't shut up. So silence is death. So don't be silent. Silence is death. If you have to call every single day about getting your kids back, if you have to call every single day about at this point, I'm calling the Department of Revenue. You need to end my child support because 2 of my kids have aged out and they won't stop. They won't take it. They won't stop making me pay for them. It's just automatically supposed to come off. You can't just keep making somebody pay for them. And like in the Anderson's case, they come to him and say, if he signs this piece of paper, they're going to give him custody of his child, where then they take the child. If they come to Mr. Hux and they say, if you sign this piece of paper, you're just going to get a misdemeanor charge and you'll get out of jail and it'll just be probation, and they give him a felony charge. You can't come up to people and say lies as a lawyer, as a judge, as these DSS workers, as these social workers to get people to sign their rights away. You can't lie and then create a false narrative and then that's what's happening. And over and over again, repetitively in all of our cases, nobody would sign a piece of paper giving themselves their kids away. Nobody would sign a piece of paper saying they're going to get a felony charge for a little broken finger. Nobody would do that.
This is a criminal organization if I've ever seen one.
Well,
This is a criminal organization.
I've been watching Jay White for 8 years, and I've seen him evolve around here. He's gotten more powerful, and he's more powerful by the orchestrator and the people around here that lets him be powerful. And that's what we got to stop. I seen him go from being a dedicated man to a soulless man. He takes children and separates them from families and don't care. He thinks nothing of it. He's falsifies paperwork, don't mention, he leaves things out, and
makes up paperwork,
Yeah.
He's really a creepy old man. He's
Mhm.
really a sick old man. He don't need to be in the public no more.
And
He
And that's
ruthlessly
right.
jailed a veteran, ruthlessly jailed Mr. Anderson,
he don't care.
and
He's
he
just
didn't care.
no.
No, he's heartless. I mean, just
No
like what,
conscience. No
yeah, I mean,
conscience.
just like, for example, my wife and I, we thought we were doing the right thing by going to the leadership. I mean, and I'm going to say his name, Meismer, one of our county commissioners. And I tell people that he's a snake. Well, he really is a snake. We talked to him probably a few months back, and he kept telling us, "Oh yeah, Jay White is going to be out of here. We're not going to renew his contract. We're not doing this. We're not doing that." Next thing you know it, that's when the $100,000 comes up where they're swearing that they're trying to find, and then they try to say, "Well, the head finance guy, which was Rodney at the time for Cabarrus County, he supposedly left." And I'm sitting there like, I asked him, me being the bold person I am, there was a day that I got kicked out, I believe. I said, "So did he leave or did you guys force him out?"
Yeah.
"Well, we're trying to find out where that 100,000 in." And then, "Well, why have you not returned the call back to my wife?" "Oh, well, I talked to Elise Pugh at the time, who's the assistant county manager. And also at the time, she was the interim manager of DSS, the head of DSS. And, well, she didn't contact you?" No. I mean, it's been so bad in our case that on Easter Sunday, we asked for a visit, and the head of at the time, Elise Pugh, she supervised our visit. Can I tell you that they went as far as to lie about that visit on the then interim director, saying that my daughter has felt scared? And I'm like, that Elise Pugh stepped out and went to the restroom and left us alone, and our daughter left us alone with her, and she was scared because Elise had went out the room, and we're sitting there like, what? That's how far they go in
So
these
many
documents.
lies.
And then what was so interesting on our court date on May the 7th, when they tried to kick everybody out of our hearing, which they were successfully able to do, they literally tried to kick out Elise Pugh, who was the assistant county manager. And she was like, "I've been subpoenaed to stay here." Jay White was trying to kick her out of the courtroom because she knows the truth about what's going on.
Anyone that tries to
And they're
help
going to
us,
make her the
anyone that
scapegoat.
tells the truth, they want them silenced. Anyone
Yes,
that
and they're trying to make her and the new DSS director, Holly McCollum, their scapegoats. Because now they're seeing what's going on and they know they can put a stop to this. But again,
Right.
as Mr. Anderson said, they have made this man so powerful that he's giving them orders when they should be giving him orders.
Right. How is a judge and a prosecutor in the same courtroom come from the same law firm?
Yeah. Oh, and also, what law school did they all graduate from? Yeah,
Right.
it's always the
they're all
same
at the
one.
Hartzell and Williams firm. And even Christy Wilhelm, the judge, used to work in that firm. So they just move around the seats and there's no accountability because Jay White was a county commissioner, had to step down, got an SBI, got a fine from the SBI, had to step down because of the whole issue of conflict. He had to step down from being a county commissioner to be the county DSS worker. And before he was the county DSS worker, Christy Wilhelm was the county DSS worker. Then they put Christy Wilhelm as the judge. Well, Christy Wilhelm came from Jay White's firm.
And she used to babysit his kids.
Yeah.
See, this is how it is. And that's why I'm so glad I had all of you on to share your stories. And if anyone wants to reach you, Eric and Stephanie, how do you want to be reached? Or do you want them to just have everyone just come through me and I can get messages to probably all of you?
I think coming through you is easier.
Okay.
That would probably be the best.
Okay. Don't jump off. Okay. Slam the Gavel's a podcast. Help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. And please join us again here. We will have these guests on in the future for updates. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, iTunes, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, other platforms I don't know about. And feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep these podcasts going. I totally thank you for all this information that everyone needs to be aware of, especially in North Carolina.
Yes. Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you.
Marianne.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much,
for
Marianne.
speaking out. It's a
Thank
lot of
you.
courage. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne.